here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Speaking of Bitcoin, then we're going to go to our big story of this hour. Bitcoin plunges as major exchange Mt. Gox halts all withdrawals. And that's all I've ever said about Bitcoin is the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And it just, I've had a bad feeling. And I'm not saying you were dumb to be part of it. I'm not against the currency. I'm all for cryptocurrencies and independent currencies. It's just that the government's going to use Bitcoin's fall, I believe, down the road. Maybe I'm wrong. They're going to use its fall to discredit all cryptocurrencies and basically try to arrest a bunch of people involved. That's why I go with my gut now. My gut was always right my whole life, but I was always stupid and didn't follow it. Now I am servile to my gut. Servile to it. And it does not steer me wrong. It's my conscience, my discernment, God-given gift. And you've got it too, folks, if you learn how to use it. And you know, maybe it'll end up not being bad, but my gut tells me don't walk, run away from Bitcoin. Everybody's going to get mad at me because it's a big liberty thing everybody's been sucked into. Look, aren't you glad I'm there to give you the other side about it? If you made some money in it, great. But don't you feel sorry for those that are going to get caught holding the bag? And hey, if you want to be a stockbroker, do it. Go get into bubbles. I just don't do that. I know how to make incredible amounts of money in the stock market, following trends. I don't do it because in the final equation, it's predatory. And I'm not saying the idea of stocks were bad. People used to buy stocks in ships because you could lose the ships easily. So if you hedged your bets, you could end up making money, and that helped create Western trade and colonize the planet. I'm just saying what it is today is a very, very serious situation. Now, David Knight, investigative journalist, InfoWars Nightly News, co-host with Zachary Jackson, Leanne McAdoo, and, of course, the great Darren McBreen. We did that intro you saw when we just came into the segment. He was telling me last night about this. I remember when it happened last year, and then the hype, and we need to pass cybersecurity. It's really an internet takeover because of it. These transformers getting shot up, and the professional job, and disappearing, 1 minute before the police got there, and little piles of rocks to know where to do the shooting. Probably third-party Merck team hired to do it, told they'd be given immunity. Probably part of a drill. They do drills that actually blow stuff up, folks. And then you just tell the public that it was real. They have drills, they blow up buses, light things on fire, you name it. That's how they work these things, and then they get the cybersecurity takeover, $100 billion a year to private interest. David Knight's here to talk about it. In 19 minutes, a team of snipers destroyed 17 transformers at a power station. And the reason this is back in the news is they're trying to use this clear false flag, and David believes a precursor to another real larger power event, as a pretext to bring in a form of martial law. They won't call it that. They'll call it emergency stabilization. David Knight, give us your breakdown of the story you've been following for several months.
Well, this just came out yesterday from a former FERC chairman, went public with this. When it first happened, the utility company said it was just vandalism. But vandals don't go down and cut the fiber optic cables, the underground fiber optic cables. They don't spot this stuff carefully. They
only Imperial stormtroopers were so precise?
That's right. They don't remove all the fingerprints from the shell casing. So what you see here is something that was very carefully planned. It was professionally executed, and it was also a measured attack. They could have blown up and destroyed. The people who planned this and executed this so well, they could have destroyed that entire power station. They could have caused a very wide outage. But as you mentioned before, when you have false flag attacks, you don't always target that to the public. Sometimes you target it to some people who are in the know.
There have been a lot of false flags, plants being blown up. In fact, I've been told by high-level sources there's more than 50 a year that they use to scare the cops and everybody and say, don't tell anybody, you're part of the group now, but we don't want to panic the public. And that's how they bring them into the conspiracy.
That's right. So it could have been something like that. As you mentioned, CISPA was under consideration at the time, and CISPA was an infrastructure issue. So how better to emphasize that than some kind of attack like this? So we don't really know, but what it does look like, we can tell that it was very carefully planned, very carefully executed. They took out the oil on the transformers when they shot them. They drained down. It set off the alarms. The police were called, but of course they stopped shooting about a minute before the police got there. The police get there, and it's locked. So the police just say, well, I guess everything's okay, and leave. And then they put out that it was a vandalism charge. And so we didn't know anything about it until this broke yesterday. and the former chair of the FERC that oversees this.
Sure, but we were following it months ago when it happened, saying clearly this isn't vandals.
Right, right. And so all this stuff is very, very suspicious that they're coming up with. And as I said before, it's very carefully planned, very carefully executed, but very measured. They could have blown up these transformers. They could have taken out the entire substation. It could have been a very public event. But instead, it was a pretty serious attack that showed a threat, showed the vulnerability, but then didn't alarm the public. And that's what's interesting about it, I think.
Well, that's what they do a lot of times we've seen to get funding. And again, most of these terror attacks are kept secret. Been a lot of lethal ones that go on, and they use it to say, oh, we're keeping the police and everybody on their toes. The truth is they're doing it to be able to take over society. And yeah, the cops on the ground are on their toes, and the InfraGard and all of it, but it's keeping them on their toes for a made-up false threat. Now, it's true if we attack Iran, they're not going to need to stage attacks. The Iranians are going to attack the power stations. And they've got sleeper teams in the U.S., which is what the globalists want to begin with. Imagine if there's major system-wide disruptions. That will absolutely empower Homeland Security that's just lined up, ready to take over.
Oh, yeah. And we've talked many times about how fragile and vulnerable our power system is. And so this is something, whether or not you believe this is a false flag, whether or not you believe this is a terrorism event, the bottom line is that it shows how vulnerable our power system is. People need to be concerned about that. They need to take their own precautions. That's the #1 takeaway out of this.
You know what? Stay there. I want to come back in the next segment, talk more about that, and then get your take on Rand Paul and others getting hardcore against Obama and where you see all that's going, calling Clinton a sexual predator, being the #1 fundraiser. We're going to go to break here in a moment. Come back with David Knight, who's in studio with us. First off, don't forget, this whole hour has been brought to you by the best storable foods company out there. And that's mypatriotsupply.com/Alex to find their specials, and it supports the broadcast. mypatriotsupply.com/Alex. I recommend you prepare with My Patriot Supply. That's who I use. Delicious, easy to prepare, put together with GMO-free crops, storable for 25 years. Folks, you need to be prepared. mypatriotsupply.com/Alex. And lastly, we're going to end it Monday. We usually run it in December into February. We're already into February. We're going to end it next week. You can get 5 months off the yearly memberships for InfoWars Nightly News and InfoWarsNews.com or PrisonPlanet.tv, and then you're funding the very tip of the spear in the InfoWar, and our reporters, the cameras, the crew, all of it. We're really going to the next level right now. Thanks to all your support. God bless you. Visit InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want. The Republican Party was basically taken over by the CIA in the 60s, and National Review and William F. Buckley were part of that, and that's been declassified, by the way. If you want to look that up, it's public. Type in National Review CIA. Then the neocons, who've been the Trotskyites, literally out of Mexico, from Russia, literally. This is mainstream news, too, if you're a new listener and like, what? Communist? Took over. But their job has always been to suppress the Tea Party, has been to the proto-Tea Party, people like, with no apologies, Barry Goldwater. Sometimes silence isn't golden, it's yellow. And this is all on record if you just want to research it. I mean, Ronald Reagan spoke out against the CFR, the New World Order, the Trilateral Commission, the plan until they got him in a room. And that's all come out. And so the Democrats are gone. They are the front line, the tip of the spear of the takeover, the new demographic shift. The Republicans are to be a regional group, and that's why they've got them committing suicide right now with the open borders, all the rest of it. We need to take over the Republican Party, not let it commit suicide, and then have inroads with kind of liberal libertarians, which are forming out there, and helping take over those areas for liberty. Live and let live, man, but come on. Don't raise taxes on middle class and tell me it's social engineering for the good when the billionaires are tax exempt offshore. I'm tired of it. And the truth is something nobody can argue with. Democrat, Republican, I don't care, black, white, old, young, gay, straight. Man, listen, you can have polka dots. As long as you love freedom, I like you. And the liberals are not high ground liberals. They're authoritarians. I know it's easy to buy into the corporate fraud of, oh, you're in this group or you're in that group. Folks, we got a real problem on our hands here. David Knight, do you agree with me? I want your take on this. How exciting is it to have Rand Paul calling Bill Clinton a sexual predator and a monster, and he shouldn't be the Democrats' #1 campaign fundraiser, and others calling Obama a criminal and dangerous. And this is what we need, because when people are being bad, the rhetoric has to fit it. We can't dial it back just because the Democrats are outrageous criminals. I mean, I think we've got to dial it up. They're always saying, back off, be nice, that's how you win. No, that's how we've lost. We need to get aggressive. Our forebears killed people to have freedom. We're just trying to turn our voices up.
Absolutely. You know, Ronald Reagan, you mentioned Ronald Reagan, he was a very different candidate than he was a president. And, of course, there were connections with William Casey and George Bush the first, and the Iran-Contra, all that kind of stuff was happening. After about 6 years of this, Ron Paul had enough, and he wrote a very scathing resignation letter from the Republican Party. He spoke out about this. We need people like that. I think Rand Paul is the same way. I'm hoping he's the same way, that he will speak out against this stuff instead of just giving them a free pass in the name of being a nice guy and getting along with the system. I hope that he gets in their face like Ron Paul did. Ron Paul resigned. He ran as a libertarian, and he never backed down from those principles. So we're hoping that Rand Paul will do the same thing. This is very encouraging to see him come out this way.
Well, that's right. I mean, they need to turn up the heat here, and that's what's happening. I mean, that's why Ted Cruz is on top now in the polls ahead of Rand Paul. Ted Cruz globally, I saw a poll, I think it was Gallup a few weeks ago, globally is seen as the second most influential political person after the Pope.
Wow.
Worldwide, all because he just stood up and said we have a criminal government. All because he had the will. Just like people in Eastern Europe spoke out against the Soviets.
Yeah.
Call it out. The power is in telling the truth. To all you people that sell out to the system. You think you get ahead by being milquetoast. No, you don't. You become a slave. Go ahead.
The public sees it. So when Ron Paul gets up and says, you've betrayed all the principles that you ran on, Ronald Reagan, when he says something like that, people have already seen it. It's pretty obvious.
Symbols are powerful, and the globalists have hijacked the symbols of America. They've turned them into their own symbols. Well, we are restoring the idea of the true republic, not the counterfeit globalist empire, by promoting the icon George Washington and others. That's why we're rolling out an 100% made in America line of incredible pro-liberty apparel. We are repopularizing liberty. We are helping fellow Americans rediscover what made this country great. We are the spirit of 1776. We are 1776 worldwide. We are all brothers and sisters in arms in the animating contest of liberty in the long march towards humanity's ultimate destiny of freedom. Visit madein1776.com today and vote with your dollars to promote truly made in America, high-quality products, and promote the ideals of liberty. David, other points you'd like to add about the state of politics in this country and all the things that are happening?
Well, you were just talking about Ted Cruz, and that's one of the things that makes him so powerful is that both he and Rand Paul have been going in and attacking really the front end of where all this tyranny is, and that's the executive orders, the NSA. That's what we're really concerned about. Now, Rand Paul is attacking Clinton here, and he needs to do that because Hillary Clinton is going to be his opponent, but the things that he's done with the speaking out against drones and assassinations, the stuff that Ted Cruz has come out against, the executive orders and the dictatorship that's there, that's really important. People need to see that. They need to understand where that problem is. We need people who are going to speak to that issue, and hopefully they'll do something about it, because we've had a lot of people who have talked about it. Even though they're in the minority, they don't really have the power to do anything about it. I would like to see somebody just offer a bill to impeach Clinton, not Clinton, well, they could have, that's...
Well, same, it is. Obama is the fourth term of the Clinton.
That's right. That's right. It's hard to tell the difference when even when they go from one party to the other.
Well, I mean, Clinton is raising all the money. She's going to run again, and we cannot get rid of these people.
That's right. But somebody needs to put out a bill, even if it's not going to fly, even if they can't get it through, they need to stand on the principle. It's the sort of thing, just like what Ted Cruz came out and he said he's evil. They need to make that point. They need to put up a bill of impeachment. They need to do everything they can, even if they know that nobody else is going to support them in Congress.
Other stuff that's on the radar, I mean, I know you're doing a lot of research.
Well, just going back to this report that we had, I think it's very significant that they're now talking about this thing that happened nearly a year ago. They kept it quiet. They just used it internally. It clearly looks like it was, like I said before, very carefully done, very professionally executed, very carefully planned, and very, very measured so that the public didn't know about it. Now we're hearing about it, and I think when you look at that, you look at the issue of the Olympics here, we are on the razor's edge here. Liberty is really hanging by a thread, just like our infrastructure is hanging by a thread. They could pull off some kind of a major event like this, whether it's a major outage of the power grid that they blame on a terrorist attack, or whether it's an actual false flag attack, something really big like this, taking the power out. They could use that to further ramp up the police state, use as an excuse. Even if we have a terrorist attack in the Olympics, that's something that would be very, very dangerous for us, because they would extrapolate that back to here.
What does your gut tell you is going to happen to Obama? Because if we don't try to impeach him or rebuff what he's done, it's going to set the precedent that all this executive garbage is passed on to the next tyrant.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think a lot of people in the Republican Party are letting him get away with it, because they want that power when they get into office. We've seen that happen over and over again. They'll just switch sides. They don't really have any. A lot of people are criticizing him here and there on separate issues, but they really want that same power when they get into office. They don't really want to take that away. They could take it away if they wanted to. And we've seen the abuse is so much worse than it ever was under Nixon. You know, the abuse of the IRS power. At that time, the IRS commissioner just took the enemies list and put it in his safe. He didn't actually execute it. Now we've got IRS commissioners who actually execute the enemies list and actually lie about it.
And then don't get in trouble, get caught lying. It's come out she lied over and over again under oath. And then they're still expanding the persecution.
There's nothing worse than letting somebody get away with the crime, because what the federal government is turning into is the feral government. This is a government that's been abroad, killing people, starting wars. Now they're bringing it home.
No, you're right. They are a feral, rogue, mad dog government, and all of us are in danger, including the idiots that are in the system letting this happen. You think this power is not going to bring everything down, you morons, with no checks and balances? This is a disaster.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.